Hello, I'm David Burton. I'm a community development specialist with the University of Missouri Extension, headquartered in Springfield, Missouri. Uh, One of my areas that I get to work in is something called the Engage Neighbor Program. And as part of that overall program, I do a monthly gathering online called Neighboring 101. The original idea was to start it out as a class, but there was so much interest in it, it quickly turned into more of a network. And now, with nearly 800 people involved from 36 states, we just keep going each month with a new guest and a new theme, talking about topics related to neighbors and neighborhoods. And this idea that becoming an engaged neighbor is something that makes you healthier and that your community demands and needs. We look at different people different approaches they have taken to this topic. Normally, these classes are live here in June for what is, I believe, our 52nd session of Neighboring 101. This is a pre-recorded class with two guests, but sort of parallel topics. One of those is Jen Moore, who's going to be sharing with us about little free libraries and her experience and do's and don'ts for being a success with a little free library. And Christy Boyce, who has installed a free Blockbuster box for sharing of videos and DVDs. I think you'll enjoy both of these interviews and learn something new. And you may find ways that these could be useful in your neighborhood or community as well. So we'll begin by sharing our interview with Jen Moore on Little Free Libraries. Thanks again for joining me here on Neighboring 101.
Says they have over 175,000 little free libraries worldwide in over 100 countries. So you can find them from the United States to Iceland, from Tasmania to Pakistan. They're everywhere. But today we're going to be talking about little free libraries in the Springfield, Missouri area and learning from a fan, supporter of little free libraries, and that's Jen Moore. Jen, thank you for joining us today and talking about this.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoy talking about my little free library any chance I can get.
I was going to say, I think from what I've gathered, this is a real passion of yours. When I was researching the topic for an article, I had more than one person give me two bits of advice. Find the Springfield Little Free Library group on Facebook and talk with Jen Moore. More than one person said that. So I think you have quite the reputation for filling libraries and probably doing other things around them as well. So why, kind of started from the beginning, I guess, why did you develop a passion for little free libraries, and what does that look like for you?
Well, I've always been a reader. I don't remember when I first learned how to read, but I've always enjoyed books. And I want to say probably about 5 years ago, when I lived in a different space, I took a walk around my neighborhood and there was one in somebody's yard, and I was like, what is this? And I'm like always curious about books. And so I noticed it had a charter sign and began to research online and thought, I want one of these. This is a real way to kind of share my love for books with other people.
I love that. Yeah, I guess, a lot of people happen on them that way and wonder about them. And a lot of people come to it because they're already interested in reading. I know a few in Springfield are maintained by librarians, current and retired. And I guess I was a little surprised by that. The library district was fully supportive of the idea of little libraries. We've got a great library district here in Springfield. But I thought, maybe that was, I don't know, taken away from the brand or, taken away from the library district. But it really sounds like those who love reading and support this idea just really want to make books readily accessible. Well, that's really the point.
Where I live, which is just south of downtown in the West Central neighborhood, is a real mix of incomes and people and homeowners and rentals and that sort of thing. Plus, we get a lot of people that just walk through the neighborhood. So even though the Park Central Library is, less than a half a mile from where my house is, that doesn't mean that everybody that passes through or lives around my neighborhood has book access. Maybe they don't have an address to get a library card. Maybe they don't, maybe they've got fines that they can't pay off. Maybe they don't, want to be limited to when I have to return this, or I have to return this to the right place. With a little free library, you just grab a book. You can leave a book if you want. You can drop it off somewhere else. It can be a permanent thing of your library. It's just, you take it and, maybe you pass it on to somebody else, or maybe you just keep it. So
Yeah. I love that idea kind of that they promoted, kind of take one, share one.
mhm.
It doesn't sound like people have as many shared to the boxes maybe as taken. So how do you replenish, and how do you find your books? How have you gone about doing that? As I understand, you fill others besides just your own.
Well, I don't fill others regularly, but one time I got a stack of children's books and there was like 20 to 25 of them. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these? And then I'm like, oh, I get to explore all the other free libraries and drop a book in their box. So put a message out on Facebook, hey, do you want one? And that really got me to explore the other boxes or the other libraries that are here in Springfield. But again, going back to kind of knowing your neighborhood and knowing, who's in your neighborhood, what sort of age readers you've got, and what the demographic of the readers that you have are. I'm sure there's some neighborhoods in some more upper income areas that would have more books shared. I think in the neighborhood that I'm in, there's more of a book access thing. Some families maybe don't have home libraries. There are, one time I had a kid walking down the road. I think he said, he was kind of looking at it, didn't want to touch it. And I said, do you like to read? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, what do you like to read? And he told me what he liked to read. And I happened to be stocking in there. And I said, well, let me go inside and see what I can find for you. And came out and gave him 3 different books. And he goes, these are free? And I go, yes, they're free. You can take them. And he's like, okay. And now that kind of age group, I have a hard time keeping in stock.
Word spread.
But also, if a parent can't take a child to a library, or if, maybe it's summer and they don't have access to the school library, they can still get a book.
I think that's a great example. What I love about your example is you're obviously you're in tune with your neighborhood and who lives there and kind of the demographics. So that could influence what you put in there. And it sounds like you've been able to use it to kind of help foster some neighbor connections as well.
Hopefully. Now I don't always talk to everybody that's looking in the box, because I don't want them to think I'm looking over their shoulder, sort of thing. And I want them to feel free to, leave or take, or, whatever. But a lot of my books go out and I don't ever see them again. And that I had to be okay with that in the beginning. So in order to stock my box, my primary thing is the Friends of the Library book sale. And that is, I have a hard time keeping adult general fiction and young adult books. And it's just, I know that I'm going to set apart so much of my budget to do this, but my gosh, when picture books are 50 cents a piece, I can afford for the neighborhood to have all my picture books and never see them again.
Well, the Friends of the Library sale, like you said, it's a great deal. You come away with some great bargains and stuff there. And I love that you had that passion to share and do that in that way. I didn't think to ask. I should back up. You've had your own library for a couple of years. Did you install it? Did you build it yourself? How'd you go about that?
Well, I'm not so handy that I could construct one myself, even though I might want something that's a little more customized. I ordered one from the Little Free Library website. They
Okay.
have kits that you can order that are wood that you can paint or stain or whatever. And I knew that that was probably above my knowledge. I mean, maybe I could figure it out, but I bought one that was composite, knowing that the weather is not going to, it's kind of the upkeep isn't going to be as much for the structure because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly come in all makes and models and all shapes and sizes. You see that throughout Springfield. And you mentioned touring them in Spring or finding them, the website, and they also have an app. Both of those make it really easy to find a library close to you, no matter where you're at, which is kind of interesting.
Well, and you would be surprised where they're at. I go downtown, and there's one outside the downtown church there on Jefferson and Walnut. And then there's one at United Way of the Ozarks.
Oh, yes. Vicki Hicks mentioned that she used to stock that one, that she worked at United Way, and I think they put food and some other items in there too, just because of the walkers by and population there.
Well, and I don't generally put food in mine because I want it to be for books, but I've had other people put food in it. And sometimes I'm like, that's not what it's for. But then again, there's not a sign on there that says, please don't put food in here.
Yeah.
So, I leave it and, for so long, and sometimes it's, somebody else has picked it up. So
what's your observation about like the best location for these? Is it a front yard? Is it a park? Is it a business? You think there's a best location or a best rule of thumb to get traffic and get usage? Or
I think wherever there is foot traffic. So if you are kind of a car dependent neighborhood and the people in your neighborhood don't take walks or walk their dog or something like that, people see them and they say, oh, I want to check that out. And then the next time they see it, oh, I want to check it out. And then they have to pull over. I think there's one on Jefferson going south, north of Sunshine or something. And I've passed by it, and I'm like, oh, I'd want to stop, but I've got to pull over, and it's not a great place to pull over. So it's really, you need foot traffic because people need to be able to stop, look at what's in there, have the time to be curious, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's good knowledge on that. I've noticed there was one here in Republic that didn't look like it was very used or loved, maybe, but it's in a neighborhood that doesn't even have a sidewalk, so it's not going to get much foot traffic. And then by comparison, we have one that's in a small neighborhood park near us, and my lands, the volume and the interest in that, but people go walking by it all the time and easily accessible. So they're the tale of two libraries. I mean, they're very, very different in that regard.
I've heard about some being in front of schools,
Yeah.
And they just have, books for school age children. And mine, I really try to, I kind of have a formula that I stock once or twice a week. And, for a long time, I put like a board book in there for, toddlers, and it never got taken. And then all of a sudden every week that got taken. And I'm like, okay, I must have someone in the neighborhood that has a baby or a toddler, but board books, and then picture books, and those early Dick and Jane chapter books, and, the kind of 4th, 5th grade books, and then young adults. I have a tough time keeping young adult books in there. And I would have thought that would have been the least taken, because you don't think middle school and high school kids read, but maybe they do in my neighborhood.
They come under the cover of darkness and get the books, so
Yes.
nobody knows they're doing it.
Well, but then again, taking a book from a box like that, you don't have to go through a librarian to check it out.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen some libraries that have done like blind date with a book where the books are
Mhm.
wrapped in brown paper, so it might say what type it is, but you're getting a surprise. You're kind of I thought that was a really clever idea, a fun type of thing. So there's a lot of ways to interact here and things. What type of do you get other feedback from your neighborhood or residents? Is it generally positive or?
I have twice gotten direct feedback from the box. Once someone left me a note in there and they said, Jen, thanks for all the books. I love them and my grandbabies love them too. And I thought, how do they know who I am? How did they know my name? But in the books, I stamp it that says, with the little free library stamp that says, not for sale, always a gift kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Love that.
So, and then another family that had stopped, I was coming home from work and, they were there and I was kind of walking around them to get to my door and I just said hello and, they felt kind of like, a little nervous that somebody's watching us get into this box. And I go, let me know if you can't find anything that you need. And they were like, oh, okay. And then they saw me walk in. They're like, oh, and that started a conversation. Oh, we're in this sort of house down the road, not that one, but this one. And so I saw the ages of the children there. I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I have books that are appropriate for what age I'm guessing that they are. And I've seen them stop before without the kids, just kind of seeing what's new and grabbing a couple items.
It really has opened doors for you to
Mhm.
get to know your neighbors and neighborhood.
Mhm.
Lots of opportunities, it sounds like. What are some other, because you've been at this for a while and you're very serious about this and very strategic, it sounds like, in some of your choices. What are some other like do's and don'ts maybe for someone who's wanting to start a little free library? Any other advice that can help them be a success or things to avoid so they can learn from your mistakes instead of making them themselves?
Well, I mean, again, know your neighborhood, know kind of who's in your neighborhood and that foot traffic. I've seen online and I don't live in a neighborhood that has a homeowners association. In some homeowners associations, they have restrictions and you can't put it up or they want it in a central location or something like that.
Mhm.
But just sometimes it takes a while for it to take off. I put my first group of books out there and I'm, twiddling my thumbs and I'm like, nobody knows about this. But I also started it in November. So I kind of also know that when, my books, when the weather's bad, like when it rains or snows or whatever, nobody's taking the books because I don't have that foot traffic.
Mm.
So there's that, and just make it to where it's easy for you. A lot of people that maintain little free libraries, they have what's called backstock. And I don't know if you've seen that in your research, but they have books in some area of their house or their garage or something. You talked about that blind date with a book. Sometimes I do things by theme. December, I'm going to have holiday books. November, I have November, I have Thanksgiving books and all that kind of stuff. So as I go to these little free, the Friends of the Library sale, I make a list of, I need, early chapter books that are this type of thing to make sure that I grab that. You've got to, you sometimes have to plan ahead. Like if all of your mystery or your spy books are disappearing, then you need to be able to get more of those later.
I love the thought that you have put into this. I never would have thought about backstock or even themes. and how you can accomplish that. I love that, Jen. We talk sometimes about this idea of loving your neighbor, and one of the way you can do that is to listen to their story, or to take time to demonstrate that they are seen and known. Now, in this case, maybe you don't get to have a lot of those face-to-face conversations, but it's obvious that you're putting a lot of time into thinking about what's best for that library and what people in your neighborhood are interested in, and in that way they are seen and known. I love that example. I didn't get you on here. I know you probably didn't want to be on here just getting kudos for this, but
No.
I never would have considered that. I just think, wow, you've really thought through this. And
Well, in that same vein, I make sure that I get books that show diverse people. You've got, and other people, they just, whatever books they read, they put in there, and that's great for their library box. But I want to be more intentional about what I'm sharing, that maybe I have people in my neighborhood that are from other cultures. I want those people to see themselves in books. I want to maybe expose somebody to a book they wouldn't have even considered before, but maybe that's the only, one of, their reading level or something. Come to think about it, there's another interaction that I had, and it was somebody that had grabbed some of those early chapter books, those early reader books that, we used to call Dick and Jane books, the limited vocabulary, and there was only one in there, and it was an adult woman. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, there's not much in there, because I hadn't restocked. And she goes, I can only read one at a time. And she walked away with that, learn to read type of book. And I thought, you know what, maybe that is her reading level. But getting it from a little free library box saves her the explanation of going to a library of why is an adult checking out this limited vocabulary book.
yeah, that's an excellent point too. Wow. I may be digging a post hole and putting up a library here pretty soon. Guess I better tell my wife in advance, warn her, but it sure, seems like a great thing to do for your neighborhood, and something that, can be fun too. I hear your passion. You have fun doing it. And I found this little tidbit online. I think this is worth sharing. It says that the Library of Congress, the National Book Foundation, the Women's National Book Association, and the American Library Association have all honored Little Free Library nonprofit organization. And Reader's Digest named them as, quote, one of the 50 surprising things that we love about America.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
That's really nice.
Of all the things you could think of, and it's just maybe because it's in our fast-paced world, it's easy to drive by or race by and not pause to consider what is there and what's in it, or taking the time to read and thinking about people like you that have put so much thought into what's going to be in the Little Free Library. So I can see now, after visiting with you, why they have earned such accolades from all across the country, and why people love to do this. What do you think the future holds for you and your Little Free Library? Should you ever move sometime? You taking it with you? Or are you going to build another one? Or what's your plan?
I own my home, so if I sold it, I guess if they wanted to keep it, I would leave it, but I would probably start another one wherever I moved. But one of the things about when I moved to the neighborhood, I didn't want to just live there. I wanted to be a part of the community there. I wanted to get to know people, and I moved there just in October of 2019, right before COVID.
Wow.
So, I know a few of my neighbors fairly well, and then others through this little free library, plus just the people that come through. So even if I don't meet someone, I imagine that I'm doing something positive in their day if they're stopping to look at it, you know, and not to say that it's without frustration. It's not. There are people that leave controversial things in there, you know, literature from certain organizations that I feel are to one way or the other, and I just remove that. If it's a
Yeah.
book, then I donate it to the Friends of the Library so they can sell it at the book sale because someone wants it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing. It's up to your discretion when you're the librarian.
mhm.
My mom was a librarian, so you know you have a little bit of that discretion for sure. And but I love that you're passionate enough about it to continue doing it. You've been keeping it up for a while since 2019, and so really love what you're doing, Jen. I think it sure adds to the Springfield market. And remind me, because I may not have asked, do you remember the number on your library charter, or how would someone locate your particular
Well, they can
library?
look on the little free library app, and there are people that when they travel on vacation, they pull up that little free library app and they donate books or they get books. These boxes are in airports and things like that as well. Um,
Wow.
but my charter number is 136063. And you can even leave a message on that app for somebody that you've taken a book for or dropped a book off at, or check, you know, sort of check in that you visited that box as well.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Well, I have to look that one up on the app then for sure. Well, I'll go ahead and end our recording here today. And but Jen, thank you for your time. And I love the passion, love what you're doing. And so from someone who lives in the area, for someone who is a neighbor and has neighbors, thank you for your passion.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I love Jen's story and appreciate her willingness to share, and how that little free box of hers works. I know since the story published that I worked on, she's had a lot more interest in her efforts and has really been given advice all over Springfield. There seems to be a renewed interest in doing these boxes. It's just, you know, a neighborhood connection point, fun activity. Love to see those taking off. So she gives good advice. Now there's something you may not have heard about. It's something called the free Blockbuster boxes. I was not aware of this movement. It's somewhat similar, and now in Republic we have one of these in a library, little free library next to each other. And I think you'll enjoy my interview with Christy Boyce as we learn together about her project. Maybe this is something you want to bring to your next guest, which is Christy Boyce. Christy lives in Republic, Missouri, and she's the person we get to give the credit to for installing the first free Blockbuster box in the Springfield area, maybe in Southwest Missouri, but I know in the Springfield area. And I've got a few pictures I can show, but Christy, kind of explain what a free Blockbuster box is.
It's similar to a little free library, but it has movies or other media inside of it that people can take and watch, and then they can return or not, or they can add their own media to it. So it's very similar to that. It was started in 2019 by a gentleman in Los Angeles, and there are several hundred throughout the country, but there are only about 5 or 6 in Missouri. The closest one is Rolla. And I saw it on a TikTok video. They were opening one in Los Angeles, had a grand opening like you would have for a video store, had a banner and candy in the box. And I thought that would be really fun to do in Republic.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm putting up a slide right now of you with the box there in in Republic and what that looks like, and a second view how the door opens up and things. Is that like a standard pattern box? They all are kind of that format, or was that just something you had access to create for this video sharing box?
On the website, they suggest getting an old newspaper box, which that would have been really awesome because they're really big and they're sturdy. They're all metal. Or a real estate box like that this one is. If you
Okay.
see the little house design, and I painted it Blockbuster blue, and then you can buy a stencil from them to stencil the Blockbuster logo. But they recommend going to find an abandoned one. And I thought, what? Abandoned real estate box? I've never seen that before. But then when I started looking, they're everywhere. They're full of trash. They're dirty. They have nothing in them. The one that I found had a 1-800 number on it that I called, and it was no longer in service. And I looked at the website. There was nothing for it. And it was outside of a Subway. I won't say where, not in Republic, but I asked the Subway workers, I don't want to get them in trouble, if I could take it. And they said, yeah, nobody's put anything in that for years that I know of. So that's what they recommend, rescuing an abandoned real estate. And they had 2 of them actually outside their Subway that had full of trash, dirty, hasn't been used.
Wow. Okay. So, there's a recycling element here at play as well. Then that's neat. I'd say there might be something similar with newspaper boxes. A lot of those have kind of gone by the way. You don't even really see those as often, but I love that idea. And apparently you approached the Republic Parks Department and they were like double thumbs up to do this.
Oh, definitely. Didn't even ask many questions. Said, we just met me at the site, said this is where we'll put it, and then said, okay, we just want to see what the finished product looks like. So I understand that they want to make sure that it's decent enough for the park. And then they had me give it to them, and they poured the pad and installed it and everything. And they were really, really welcoming about it. So that was fun. And they did warn me this park gets vandalized a few times, so it might get vandalized. I said, no problem. We'll just go get another abandoned box and replace it.
I've had pretty good luck. I've had art installations up in Owen Park and things for a number of years, and knock on wood, I've never had anything vandalized there, which, over the late night hours and things, I guess that kind of surprises me. I hate to say that out loud. Almost.
Well, kids will be kids, they go down and mess around. Yeah.
Anytime I put anything up, I've in the back of my head, I know that is a potential, and I hold on to it loosely in case that does happen. But I've never had that happen. So, what made you pick Owen Park?
It is the park that's closest to my house, and I walked there. Yeah, I walked down to it, and I walked around the track, and they already had the little free library, and it's not the Miller Park and J.R. Martin Park, they're bigger parks. They have more amenities, and this is kind of a smaller park that doesn't have a lot to do there. So I thought it'd be fun to add something, another little element there that would make people walk the trail, or just something nice for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I've noticed the little free library there has had a lot of traffic.
Oh, yes.
I've seen people intentionally pull in there, get out, get something out of the library and then leave. Like that was the purpose in coming by. But I see the books move through there pretty quickly. What has been your experience so far with the Blockbuster box?
I go about every 2 or 3 days, and it's usually about half full each time. So
wow.
So people are using it, and I've noticed movies in there that I didn't put in there. I don't really keep track of what I put in there, but there were a few that were like handwritten labels on them. So I didn't put those in there. So that's nice. And I've had a lot of people say, oh, good, there's a place to bring my movies, because I've held on to them all these years. So I think I have had on Buy Nothing in Republic, I've had a donation of one man gave me about 100 DVDs in one sitting. And I have a big cabinet in my garage. I have probably over 300 movies. They're not hard to come by. I buy them for $1. People donate them. So it's easy to find. That's for sure.
I've held on to all my DVDs, so now I'm feeling bad. I did
good.
I did when it was first put up. I really wasn't familiar with the concept, and I kind of lifted up the door and saw what it was, and thought, oh, okay, this is probably like the little library. And so I swapped. I had a DVD of sort of compilations of Andy Griffith
I saw
shows.
that one. Yeah.
And I put that one in there, and then right on the top was the movie Love Actually, which more people have told me that it's a great movie. My wife and I have never seen it. We've talked about watching it, never have. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna, do the swap out. I thought, well, this is a pretty great deal immediately.
And
So
you might not have wanted to buy that movie,
Yeah.
because you just want to watch it one time,
yes, yeah, and watch it, and then you put it back in and stuff. Are you getting, as you've been there in the park and walking around, what sort of feedback are you hearing, or are you getting much feedback?
Well, I did make a Facebook page, so I've gotten some feedback on that, and just all positive. A few people, oh, aren't you worried someone will take all the movies? No, take all the movies if you want. We'll just put new in there. No problem.
Well,
And so that's the only negative I've heard is people worried for me and like, don't worry about it. I've got plenty.
well, you're right. I mean, 10 years ago, a DVD cost a lot more than now, but they've been out for so long. They probably are pretty plentiful and cheap to come by.
Yes.
So that's different. I really, it sounds like you're getting them from lots of different sources and people.
Yes.
To share. Garage sales and things are probably an easy place to find some too.
Yes, my sister went to an estate sale in Kansas City and they had a large lot of DVDs, and she said, how much would you take for all of them? My sister's doing this thing, and they got so excited about it, they just gave her all the DVDs. They didn't even charge it. So
have you always been like a movie lover? Is that why this was appealing to you? Or
I do love movies. But I'm not like a film buff, don't ask me who the directors are. Don't ask me what movies every actor's been in. I don't memorize all that stuff, but I do love to go watch movies. And it's definitely a nostalgia factor for me. When I was a teenager, we would go to, before I could drive, my mom would take us to showcase movies on Chestnut Expressway. And I don't know if you're from this area. If you remember that.
Yeah, I've grown up in this area. Oh, I remember the movie rental place.
Yes, and I lived in Willard, and we would drive into Springfield. That was the closest one, and it was a experience in itself just to pick out the movies. You'd see people there from school, and people from school worked there, and I had two sisters, I have two sisters, and we would go around and all pick out different movies and like try to decide on however many our mom said we could get, and so that was an experience in itself. And then we'd go to Family Video. That's very prevalent in Springfield. There were 5 locations, I think, at one point. And I would do that with my kids as well. There was a Little Caesars Pizza next door in the same building. And we'd go get pizza, and then we'd go get our movies, and that would be our little weekend, or they'd have friends over. So part of it's the nostalgia of just that experience, and we just don't have that anymore. Obviously, you can't recreate that in a little box, but it is a gathering place. As you said, I've actually had to wait in line at the little free library there. 2 people were in front of me, basically. So it is kind of a gathering place, way to meet your neighbors there. And, while you're standing around awkwardly, talk to them, or maybe talk about the movie or the book that you're getting,
Yeah.
So it's not just about the movies. And what the free Blockbuster motto is to dispel the myth of scarcity. So they don't want people to feel like everything that you do costs money, or that things are in short supply, that you can just go somewhere and get something for free that will entertain you. So that's part of it too. That really appealed to me, because the little free libraries like that too. It's like, we're not hoarding our books, we're not hoarding our movies, we're sharing those things with other people that may not have them or may not have the resources to buy them.
I love that. Well, some of the people watching this video have a community development background, and when you say scarcity, they will their antennas will go up, because there's something called asset-based community development, and it's about focusing on the assets and the things that the assets, gifts, and talents of people, to share those, and they're in abundance. So they often talk about abundance versus scarcity mindset. If you have an abundance mindset, you are more willing to share and give of your talents and work with others. When you have a scarcity mindset, you hoard it and you hold it all close. You don't want others to have it. So that absolutely fits then with this idea of neighboring connections and things. So sharing out of an abundance. In this case, it's movies and connections. I love that.
And now that I've done it, when I had it as a project, I just wanted to get it up and going. But now I'm thinking of more fun things you can do, like themes, for holidays, of course. I'll have all Christmas movies, or, have maybe put a little box on there that's waterproof, that's suggestions for movies that people would like to see.
Yeah.
Or, maybe have a little movie review in the case or something like that. So you can have a lot of fun with it, and that creates more connections as well, because you're personalizing things for people.
I've tried to kind of create some themes around Owen Park at different times of year, and was late in learning this, but discovered that May is Little Free Library Month.
Oh,
and
I didn't
so
know
thinking, next year with Cassie and the one there in Republic about, doing a book drive or something during that month, to encourage stock. Are you aware of anything like that with the Blockbusters, or maybe there's something else we could do in the park to, bring a DVD and something to support the effort?
Yeah, I'll have to think on that. Another thing that I like to do is paint rocks, and that's very popular at Springfield Botanical Center. And
Yes.
some people do, an event where you have rocks that already have the background painted, and kids can come and paint the rocks. So you could do something like that and just set up a table and just say, we'll be here from 10 to 2, and come and exchange movies or something like that.
Yeah.
Or even to do the rocks, because I've done that at the Pets and Pumpkins in downtown Springfield. We've done that 2 years in a row with an animal shelter that I volunteer at, and it goes really well. They just use paint pens, and you put them in a little brown paper bag for them. So there's different ways to do things that maybe they could do that. Maybe we could have put your favorite movie on a rock and hide it at the park or something like that,
Yeah, it sounds like you've had some other experience of being involved in the community and volunteering and doing some community work and stuff in the past. This isn't your first jump into that.
It isn't, but it's not the background that I have. My family we did not volunteer, or we didn't do any kind of, donating or volunteering in my family. That wasn't a family culture for my family. But my younger sister, actually, she's the one who started doing that and kind of got me into it, because for one, it's a great way to meet people and meet like-minded people. And it's a great way not to be awkward somewhere, because you have something to do. You go to a party, you're milling around and like, oh, what do I say? What do I do? If you're volunteering somewhere, you're doing an activity, and you can meet people, and you can also help people or animals. And so I've really enjoyed volunteering as an adult, because it makes you feel better. I always think that, and I've heard this before, I didn't make this up, obviously, that you feel better volunteering than the people who you help. Basically, it helps you more than anyone.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy it. And it's, I'm an empty nester, so I have more time on my hands than I have ever had. And so I like to have a project going. It keeps me hopefully young and active,
Well, that's fantastic. Well, for those who might have heard about here for the first time about free Blockbuster boxes and thinking they'd like to do that, or do it along next to the free library they have, something, what are sort of your suggested steps in the process to make it happen, and maybe some do's and don'ts?
Well, they do actually have a box you can buy on the free Blockbuster site, and it's $300, and it's already all decked out. And it's a beautiful newspaper box, and it's, that's with shipping and everything. So that's what I was going to do. But I had in my mind, I'm not putting $300 out of my own money. I'm going to just figure out how I can find $300 in the world or something. And then I found, I kept reading. I was like, oh, I can just find this free one. So that would be one thing, is just go find a free box, because that makes it very affordable for anyone. All you
Yeah.
have to buy is the stencil and the spray paint. And hey, if you want to do one in this area, I've got the stencil. You can use my stencil. You know, the stencil is like $25, but obviously reusable. And so that would be, and then just decide where to put it. Obviously, I was going to put it outside my house, but I thought, well, you know, that's easier, obviously, to refill and everything, but I don't think you get as much traffic. A lot of people do that with little free libraries, but you know, not everyone would see it like they would at a park. And it just doesn't feel as it feels like it's yours more than it's everybody's, I think. So find a good spot to put it. And if the first person says no, just keep asking, because you will find somebody that will probably enjoy having that in their community. And don'ts, I haven't really come across any yet. We've had a lot of rain, and so I was worried about the waterproofing of it, and it's not waterproof. Some of the cases got wet, and I went and just cleared them all out, and I was like, you know what, who cares? The DVDs aren't messed up. It's just the cases. So maybe waterproofing if you're worried about that. Books, obviously you have to waterproof, but DVDs,
Yes.
you don't really have to. I don't know. I can't think of any don'ts so far. It's all been very seamless and had all positive feedback. And I guess put it in a place where you will frequent, because you don't want to get tired of visiting it and maintaining it. Or if you do, you know, maybe try to get someone else to help you with it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it could, you know, I'm planning on doing this for years and years. And what happens if I'm not there to do it anymore, you know? So find
Yes.
someone else that might be interested in staffing it. Although I do think that it is going to be pretty self-regulating at some point, as people come and go and bring their own and everything.
Well, those
So
last 2 points are both, I think, especially good points. You're right. Sometimes you do see little free libraries that have fallen into disrepair and not stocked. And I can think of one in Republic that I stopped by, and the people were like, "We didn't put it up. We just bought the house.
oh
You
yeah.
know, we don't have the heart to take it down." But they didn't really stock it or anything. So, yeah, maybe having a succession plan or somebody else to help you. You're right, for longevity of it and things. Those are both good points. Well, I love it. I think it's a clever idea. I didn't realize it was a thing. Maybe this will help it grow even more in the Ozarks or in other regions where people are watching in. And I really commend you for the effort that you've put into doing this and the willingness to not just invest your time, but some treasure as well, as you've bought some DVDs and things, but being willing to give those away. I love that. And I think the neighborhood and the community is better off for it. And I thank you for being a big part of that, Christy.
No, thank you.
Thumbs
Appreciate it.
up.
Thank you.
I'll stop our recording, but we can visit a little more offline.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. That's our 2 interviews for today and for this month. Little free libraries and free Blockbuster boxes. Now, go out and spread the word. Go out and start your own, or find a partner, get a grant and find a great location for one. They do become fun gathering spots. You can promote literacy. You can promote this idea of abundancy and the sharing of entertainment. Good thing all the way around. So thank you again for joining us on Neighboring 101.